course.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Co-op Panel. This is an event conducted by the Women in CS Undergraduate Committee, which means it will fall under our Code of Conduct. It basically says you should refrain from any kind of disrespectful behavior, no insults, don't be a jerk. That's basically the end of it. No harassment. If we find someone doing that, we will have to ask you to leave. We might call security, and if you still don't leave, then this behavior, it can escalate to faculty. So please refrain from doing that. We have our moderator, Abby. She's going to take on the from now.
Excellent. Where can they find the code of conduct if they want to read it in full?
Oh, so if you want to get a detailed explanation of what I just said, go to wix.uwaterloo.ca and go to Code of Conduct. You'll find everything what I just said.
Thanks, Alright, so this is the panel. I have the schedule and all the questions on my phone, so that's why I'm looking at my phone. So the panel format will be pretty much introductions, and then I'll be asking some prepared questions, and then if any of you have questions at the end, we'll also have some time for that. So let's get started from this end onwards. Well, you're the one that sat on the side, so.
Exactly as planned. I have a question. Can we ask the audience which year they're in?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
Yeah.
First years, raise your hands.
Woo! Yay! Congratulations. Second years. Also congratulations. Third years. The state of Waterloo CS. Fourth years. Fourth. Woo! Okay. I mean, like technically. Yeah.
Cool. So each of you are going to say your name, your program, your content term, the type of work or industry that you like, and why, with an emphasis on the last one.
Okay, I'll start things off, I suppose, since I'm next to you. I'm Amy. I'm in 2B, and the industry I guess I like the most is security and cryptography, and I did mostly back-end work at my last co-op.
Hey. Hi, my name's Anna. I'm Joint Honors Combinatorics Optimization and Computer Science. I guess I'm in 3A. Who knows? I'm currently on my 4th work term, and I'm also interested in security and cryptography and all that fun stuff. I'm doing my first job in that right now, and I like it because I like the social impact that it has, and it's also really nerdy and mathy.
Hi, I'm Marcia, 3A Computer Science. I've actually only done 2 co-ops because I began my first late. The industry that most excites me is, I'm not sure if this is an industry, but I really like the field of big data, which I know is really vague, but I actually happened to do my last internship in like data analytics and data processing, and the processing of a lot of events related to advertisements and just like huge bulks of data and the challenges that come with that. I find them really interesting, and I feel like there's a lot of work to be done in that field. So, yeah.
My name is Shirley. I'm in 3B, and in the past I've worked in backend mostly and API design, both of which I really like. I'm starting to explore graphics a little bit, which should be a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm just going to see where that takes me.
Sweet. All right. The first question, a very general question. Talk about each of your work terms. Company culture, type of work, things that you like, disliked. This is a total of around 14 minutes, so you can take a couple of minutes to talk about it if you want.
Cool. So,
Actually, let's start with Anna. We're going to rotate.
Okay, so, I mean, I have the most, I think, so I guess I'll pop through it. So my first job, I worked in quality assurance, which is literally like a company up the street over there. They dealt with live video over IP networking. It was really cool working there because we're co-ops. 4 people, 2 of us were co-ops, which means that like I got to be project lead on projects. I got to like talk directly to customers, and just like my bugs. I talked to developers directly. It wasn't some weird middle ground. My second job, mainly as a PHP developer, a little bit of JavaScript checked in for fun. Not much to say about that one. My third, I'm working primarily on sticking an Angular front end on this really disgusting C++ application, like that was a desktop nightmare. I also worked a little bit in scheduling and load balancing and getting data from remote sources and processing it. And then now, I'm working on our DevOps team. I just started, so I haven't done a lot. But I did submit a pull request today. Woo! Thank you. So far, I really like it. In terms of culture, I've worked at mid-sized startups as well as I have 65 offices worldwide. The problem with there's a lot of project overhead, so I found it really hard to be like, hey, I want to do this thing. And they'd be like, gotta wait for the budget to come in. But what was nice about working at mid-sized startups is that stuff was moving fast. We need to ship code fast, we need to ship product fast. And like the PR I submitted this morning, it's already in production, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
Yeah, who goes next?
You.
Well, like I said, I've only done 2 co-ops, but that just means I have a lot more to say about each of them. So my first co-op was, who's heard of it? Oh my god. Alright, so I worked on the backend team, and I'll get back to that in a bit. And my second co-op, which I just completed this December, was at a company called Texas, and BazaarVoice does a lot of things mainly related to helping retailers understand how consumers interact with their online websites. And the team that I worked on was basically processing a lot of advertising-related statistics, and because of the data that we had on consumer activity online, we were able to leverage that to sort of gain a lot more exposure on our advertisements compared to non-BazaarVoice targeting advertising. And this was really helpful because I got to learn about a lot of big data frameworks, like I got to work in Spark and Hadoop. And since the size of the company was, maybe we had 70 engineers in all, I found that it was a size that really, really worked for me because the teams were small and things moved fast enough, but also there was like a specific direction that the product was moving in. Something that I did quite fine in, and something that is not all that common in like really, really small startups, which is what WeMesh was. I'm assuming you all know that because you all said you know what WeMesh is. And that was really nice. And I chose not to do an intern project. I chose to sort of work with my team and just pick up tickets as they came along every day and work on production issues as they came along every day, which was really helpful because around my second month, my team decided to switch databases. And if you've ever witnessed a database migration, shit breaks, you try to fix it, it breaks again, and that is basically the cycle that you go on for that you go through for like 3 months. And so like at the end of the quarter when you're like, what have you done? There's really not that much tangible progress to show, but for me personally, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what you need to consider when you're switching technologies, how to pick the right technology for your system. So that was something that was really helpful to me. Even so, when I was interviewing for my summer internship, I found that people were most interested in what I worked on. And the reason for that is because it was a team of 5 and there were 4 co-ops and 1 full-time engineer. And that basically meant that I got to own every microservice that I wrote, and I wrote 3 of them from scratch, from the ground up, and I got to see it grow from like a tiny little test project on my laptop to something that was eventually in production. I got to write the Kubernetes configuration for my containers, which is, I'm just throwing buzzwords at you, but like what I need to say is that I not only got to write my app, but also deploy it and test it and all the things that come with software development on a really small scale. That was really helpful for me, and companies also saw that might have taught me a lot more. So yeah, I'm gonna stop talking now. The end.
Cool. So I done 4. Sort of the co-op thing was with it was a research position with Dr. Stephen Watt, who's currently the dean of math here, and he had me implement in a team of 3, I think, this like synchronized sort of whiteboarding app where basically you can like whiteboard with other people in real time. And the reason why that was really valuable is because even though it was a research position, it was fairly easy to land, but it also gave me like so much exposure into product design and architecting like web apps, which I was entirely new to. which set me up really well for my first real industry co-op experience. So I was there summers ago, and I worked on something in sales platform, which is totally lame. It's this thing called host matching, and if you are like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing, and you get host matched to something that doesn't sound that great, I would highly suggest that you reconsider just taking it for the game, because that was like, other than the person, other than being at the project itself was not very like great. I knew it was not impactful. I knew it was not core to what the team was working on, and I think that like if I had been given the choice again, I might have reconsidered where I was going to be. So that was, but at Facebook, which was the one I had after, it was a very different experience. So Google's approach to intern projects that is quite siloed. So if you're an intern, they don't really trust you with all of their code base. So what they will do is give you like a small chunk of the code base or a siloed version of it that you can like play around with, right? And I know a lot of the times when interns actually come back, and as full-timers, they'll look back and be like, oh wow, all of my code was reverted as soon as I left. Like that's a little bit kind of what I think Google's approach to internships is. Facebook, on the other hand, gives you everything. They trust you entirely. They trust you to like not mess up too horribly, but if you do mess up, they have this motto that's like move fast and break things, so it's okay. You can just fix it and you won't get fired or anything. But in general, I would say that I have probably a dozen friends who worked at both companies, and all of them would suggest you take Facebook over, especially if you're looking for a more breadth-first like internship experience. And what I mean by breadth-first is you're working as though you were a real team member. So you're working on tickets that come in, maybe a couple of larger projects that come in, but at the end of the day, you're not just focusing on this one tiny little chunk of a project that probably isn't ever going to see the light of day. So that's what I have to say about this Facebook thing. Culturally, I would say Facebook has a much more cohesive culture in that you really feel like everyone's working towards the same goal of making the world more open and connected. Whereas it's something like 40,000 people now, I don't even know. So it's really easy to feel like you're just a tiny little piece of something that's really, really big. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. And my last co-op was that. So for those of you who might not know, provides a lot of APIs and services for people who want to perform like transactions online. And what I specifically worked on was the subscription service, which was very much a product. And I actually got to own a very large project over the course of Q3 of 2016. So this was something that was entirely on the roadmap. Someone was going to do it, if not me, and I had a big role in architecting like a series of steps that would have to carry out in order for the project to be implemented. So this consisted of, as Archie mentioned, a database migration, which was really painful, took a long time, a lot of internal code refactoring, a lot of API endpoints being exposed and updated, all very much production changes, and pretty impactful and also pretty terrifying at times because of the impact of what you do. So I remember, I think a couple of times, I accidentally brought down the service for maybe a couple of minutes, and this is like a pretty big deal because even though the customer base at Stripe isn't very large, the impact you have for any one customer is enormous. So if you like make things not work for even 2 people, that's really, really bad. Whereas if you make things not work for 2,000 people, it's kind of bad, but like at the end of the day, they're not like losing their livelihood, right? So that's just kind of like a breadth-first approach to the things I've worked on. I'll just stop talking now too.
Well, since I only had the one co-op, I suppose I have the most to talk about it. So I'll try to like elaborate as much as possible. So last summer I was an Explorer intern. So what an Explorer intern is that it's like a program tailored to first and second years who are interested. Not supposed to be you. Yeah. Like so you don't have to be in CS to be in the program, but it's like recommended. And yeah, so you're put out like you have like a cohort, so that you have your pod of 3 interns, and you're put on a team, and you're just expected to like develop a project, and you have your mentors, and by the end of it, you'll be like, wow, I did that, or like, oh wow, I didn't do that much, but hopefully it's former, yeah. That team with 2 other modern interns. And I guess my experience was a little bit special because they didn't have any projects lined up for us. So they were basically like, here's the code base, here's some issues and tickets, just like ask us for help, and then hopefully you'll resolve the issues. And we're like, okay. So we were basically treated like members of the team, which was like a great experience. And yeah. As for company culture, it was actually pretty nice. Like, even though it's not open concept for most of the part, because you had your own offices, like, which is really weird compared to like every other tech industry out there. But like, even though Microsoft is really corporate, everyone is really chill. Like, it wasn't as fast paced as these companies over here, because you didn't have to rush to finish anything, if that makes sense, because like there's just so many people on the team that you can like just take it easy. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So we'll probably bring up some of these things again as we talk about these other questions. But the next section of questions is about Waterloo Works, which used to be JobMine, and now it's finally Waterloo Works. So that's cool, slightly better. So the first question is, do you have any tips specific to Waterloo Works pertaining like number of applications versus what the popular positions are, and like when to start playing it safe, who you're applying to, all those decisions. And even if you're not in co-op, just like how do you approach applying to jobs, like picking what companies you want to apply to? Oh, right, starting with Darshan.
Okay, so you have 50 applications, right? I would say start off by aiming high, because there's nothing wrong with applying for a position that you feel like you're not all that qualified for, because you might surprise yourself at the interview and at the job if you get it as well. But at the same time, I would say be realistic. So all this really comes down to understanding how skilled you are in something, and also at communicating those skills in a resume or in an interview. So usually for me, when an interview cycle begins, before I ever begin applying, I just sit down and I think about like what I've done over the past 8 months, like over the study term, over the study term previous to this, and my work term previous to this, and what I've accomplished, and sort of assess where you are and whether you're ready to take on something new. The second thing I think I consider is which direction do I want to go in. For me, I've experimented with like mobile app development, full stack development, web development, and I really took to backend during my first co-op, and other fields of development like front-end development never really attracted me. So that was really helpful for me because it helps to eliminate a lot of choices that you see at Waterloo Works, and there's a lot of them. Like when all the jobs are finally posted, there's so many different positions to choose from, and it's really important that you know that you're not going to be applying for this and you're not going to be applying for that. Because if you apply to like 15 different things, you might end up getting interviews for positions you don't want and offers for positions you don't want, which is not a good thing. Even if you're a first year and you're like, I just need a job, any job. So those are the two things that I really do, and then I shortlist maybe out of 50, I think maybe 70 jobs that I really like, and then I pass through them like a second time, and then I apply to maybe 30% of the jobs are like jobs that I don't think I'm gonna get, but like what the hell anyways. Jobs that I feel like I'm definitely gonna get them, so I need a job because I'm in co-op, so like let's apply to these. And jobs that are like out of my comfort zone but not completely inside it, and that maybe comprises of like 50% of my applications. So that's my personal approach.
So I don't have experience with Waterloo Works because I actually transferred here from a different school, so I'm not in co-op. I've always just gone out and kind of like applied online or through other ways. So two things I have to say about that. One, if you have a friend or an acquaintance or a family member or anyone who works somewhere, get them to refer you. Like, I will put money on it that that's a better way of doing it than even like Waterloo Works, but definitely better than just cold applying online, because they get so many applications online, and we all know the story pretty much, right? But if you can get someone to advocate for you and send in your resume, talk to their recruiter, and like fill out maybe a company form about why you're a good fit, then that is like infinitely better than I believe any other way. So that's actually how I got it. I had someone send my stuff in for me, and in like a couple weeks, the recruiter just straight up reached out. And this was back when I was not even at Waterloo. I was at Western, which is not well known for CS at all. And I got the interview, passed them, and then got the offer. So that's the first thing I have to say about that. Second is, don't discount research positions because my first position was in research. But if the research position is fundamentally a software development position, I think that there's more merit to taking that than taking, say, maybe a QA position at an industry firm. So that being said, I haven't done a QA position at an industry firm before, but what I do know is taking that research position that was ultimately software development gave me a lot more relevant skills that later made me comfortable applying to Google and Facebook and so on.
Yeah, so I agree that you should probably aim high with your first round applications, because as scary as it might be, continuous is not that bad. There is always more jobs that will be posted, there'll be less competition. Because as soon as first round ends, a lot of people would have already accepted their positions and offers. So your pool of competition is a lot less. And there's typically still some very good jobs in continuous. For example, one of my friends decided against taking any offers in the first round and then got Bloomberg and continuous. That's a exceptional thing, right? But it happens, right? So you shouldn't be worried too much. And also for applying outside of Waterloo Works, so you know those info sessions on the Seeka calendar, right? I would recommend actually going to a few, but only go if the room they book is fairly small. So you can actually, when everyone leaves, talk to people and say, hey, after you've searched up their company name and their website and then look through what they do, you can ask them a few questions that might impress them, and then say, oh hey, by the way, are you hiring? Here's my resume. Alright, so I did this last year when I was in 1B, and it managed to get me a couple interviews, for example, IBM.
I had a whole list of things to say, and I'm going to try to remember them all. First things first, for actual applications. So I started CS when I came to Waterloo. I switched in 1B. I had no experience. So what I did was I used my full 50 applications in first round. This might be a good idea for you. It's all good to be picky and choosy. Oh, I really want to work here. Well, yeah, you should apply there. But any experience is good experience. You'll hear, I'm going to come up and defend QA jobs here. A lot of people shit on QA jobs. QA jobs are great. They give you a really unique perspective on the software development cycle. Also, if you do get a software development position later on, you're oh yeah, I remember that developer kept not fixing that bug. I'm not going to make that mistake. And all around makes you a better communicator, so if you're trying to talk to people about a problem you're having, writing bug reports and having written bug reports makes you super good at that. Those first two things. Shoot, what else was I supposed to talk about?
Tips for Waterloo Works, number of applications, happy positions.
Yeah, so again with Waterloo Works, don't be afraid of talking to recruiters. So the job I have currently right now, to quote my manager, you wouldn't have been ranked if you hadn't reached out to us. And the reason for that is because the way Waterloo works is is that employers rank you as well. So they're going to take chances on people who show them a lot of interest because they want to hire someone. They don't want to have an empty position. They probably don't want to go to continuous if they can avoid it. So definitely show interest. Come to the interview prepared with really deep questions about their product. Take the time to learn about it. If you can read customer testimonials, do it. Just kind of getting into the interview process, I guess. But
I actually have one more thing to say. I thought of this as you were speaking.
It's fine, I don't have anything more to say, so you can cut me off.
So when I say aim high, I worry that a lot of you heard aim for SF.
Oh yeah.
Never
do
count
this.
your best.
Don't do calorie bust.
I guess because of the culture around co-op and job hunting and Waterloo Works or whatever, the Waterloo Online r/Waterloo or among my peers, I really grew to detest the idea of even going to SF myself. And I was thinking about this as I was applying for my spring jobs, and I was like, why is this so? And it's really because I feel like a lot of people, they want to go for the wrong reasons. It's true that there's a huge tech hub in Silicon Valley or California or what have you, and it's true that there's a lot of talent there, but that does not mean that you will not find this talent in Seattle, Boston, even Waterloo, or even Toronto. I was once waiting to be interviewed by a company who had offices both in Toronto and in San Francisco, and I ran into someone and I was like, oh yeah, I'm applying for the Toronto position, interviewing for the Toronto position. And he was like, oh, that's so sad. And I was like, why? It just didn't hit me. And he was like, well, you probably would have wanted the San Francisco position. And I really, really don't like this mindset because A, you enter into a pool in which you have 500 applications for this one position, and you'd be much better off applying to the job that has maybe only 80 applications, but is almost equally guaranteed to be as good. So definitely think about that when you're applying and you're looking at jobs.
Yeah, I remember the other thing I want to say now. So I straight up turned down Cali jobs for mid-sized startups in Waterloo. Just for the reason of that mid-sized startup had an answer to, oh, what project am I going to be working on? What kind of impact am I going to have? They've also likely had previous co-ops from Waterloo. They know what to do with you. And honestly, not moving is fantastic. Just putting that out there.
Moving is pretty simple.
It does suck. Having done it for 2 years every 4 months, yeah, it sucks. It gets old really fast. Yeah, and I think returning to what Shirley said too, at a mid-sized startup, there's no way you're going to have a day where you just sit there and do nothing and don't have impact. Yeah, that was basically it.
Cool. Wait, is that everyone?
Yeah.
Cool. Next, what are the words question? And I got this a lot. Someone actually asked me this the other day. Do I write cover letters or make resumes specific to a type of
How about we do yes/no answers to these?
Okay, sure. We can talk about it too. Okay, sure. Raise of hands. Do you write any cover letters?
Okay, I feel like I have to justify this.
Okay, wait. Yeah, go.
Can I? Yeah, I can agree with that. So when I was in the first year, I didn't think I was qualified for anything. So I wrote cover letters to make my pitch for myself. This also is good if you want to get into something like security, where people are usually reluctant to hire you if you have no experience. Because if you screw up in security, it's a big deal. So if you, two things. A, if it's a job you really want but think you might be unqualified for, writing a cover letter is a great way to make your pitch. B, if there's a lot of applicants, a cover letter will help you stand out. I've heard this from recruiters time and time again. Yeah, basically it's if you feel like you need an extra push to help you get there.
Adding on to that, only write cover letters if you have something meaningful to say.
Yeah.
A lot of people just have this template cover letter that says 0 things about themselves and why they're interested in the company. So if you're going to write a cover letter, it's really important to just actually thoroughly research the company and what they do, and say, hey, I'm interested in you because of this, right? And then yeah, other than that, just don't do it.
Yeah, don't waste your time doing it.
Interviews with companies I was kind of ambivalent about at the beginning, and then the ones I really, really cared about, I would have a lot of practice by the time I got to them. And of course I had all of this. I did the typical coding interview thing. There was a website called InterviewBit that has an embedded editor that was really, really good. And LeetCode was another one that was really good. But in terms of this, I think it's a lot of just numbers game. So if you do enough questions, you'll eventually see every possible permutation of every question that you see, and you'll just be able to get it like that when someone asks you a question, or you'll be able to recognize a similar problem and kind of reduce it down to that. In terms of behavioral stuff, I would probably practice describing your most impactful project in the past, even if that's a project from class or something that you did on your own time. Because one thing that I found kind of actually tricky was detailing the most important parts that an interviewer would want to hear about a project that I worked on. And I think that's the most behavioral type of question that I typically get on interviews. So you don't really have to worry about I don't think you have to worry about what was your biggest challenge or that sort of question. So yeah.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, super popular questions are things on strings. So palindromes, anagrams, super popular questions. Know those ones.
Know your string.
Yeah, know your string manipulations. Those are their favorite for some reason.
I would really recommend going over your data structures. So people love heaps. So you should learn that, as also hash tables. Those show up really commonly in interviews. Other than that, it is just more of like a memorization kind of game, where you just like look through all the problems, and you're like, okay, there's only a certain amount of problems they can ask, but in terms of like behavioral questions, tech interviews don't necessarily have like the really like lame ones, or given the situation, what would you do, or like if your coworker disagrees with you, how will you deal with it? They don't really
reserve
ask.
that for PD1.
Oh yeah, please ignore a lot of PD1, what they tell you. Go with your own instinct, and that's probably a lot better. Other than that, for behavioral type questions, like you should just like be able to answer the "tell me about yourself" question, and go through your resume like really well, because that's what most interviewers will go off of, like in order to ask about your projects, ask about your like daily life in school, and so on. For first year type job interviews, sometimes there won't be a technical question, and then they'll just like ask you like. For example, I interviewed at Coop, and they just had a laptop open, and they had one of my projects open on the screen. They were like, "Oh, tell me about this," and that was like the whole interview. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna interrupt you again.
oh no, but I will interrupt your interruption.
It's fine, you win.
Yeah. So make sure when you put your projects on your resume that you actually understand what the project does, because I've had friends who put projects on their resumes that they had like 1% hand in. And so when they were asked about the project, and then they couldn't answer questions because they didn't actually do a lot of the work in that project. So even if you did 1% and you still put it on your resume, make sure like you know the whole front to back of the project, because it would be really embarrassing if you couldn't answer any questions about it.
My one point was I got my first 2 dev jobs in non-technical interviews. So to get a dev job, you don't necessarily need to do a technical interview. I didn't know this, so I was freaking out all the time. But for those, now you know. Bring that knowledge to you.
Even if you don't know, so sometimes, well, most of the time they'll ask you problems that you don't know the answers to, but that's okay, right? You can still do really well in the interview while not like providing like the best answer to the problem, as long as you walk them through your thought process and say, hey, this is like what I generally want to do. Here's some pseudocode. I think that's pretty good as well.
I was once asked a question where they told me that they didn't expect me to get the answer. They just wanted to see me struggle and like, see how intelligently I struggle. It's actually pretty curious. Anyways, so I find interviewing for jobs and also practicing for interviews really stressful during the school year, especially since a lot of my interviews happen to coincide with midterm week, and then you're like, do I care about grades or do I care about that one true job? And then you don't know what to do. So I find it really helpful to practice for interviews over co-op, because I have nothing to do in the evenings and I have nothing to do over the weekends. And so I actually spent a lot of my last co-op practicing for jobs, and practicing for interviews. And it was a much less stressful experience, because it was sort of like a side project consisting of like many little tiny questions that I did over the course of like 3 months. And it was a lot of fun too. Also because I wasn't obsessed with like how many questions I practiced, but also obsessed with like do I understand the theory behind this question? Do I really understand like how this question works, and can I apply the solution to this, and look for similar questions? And it was just like for me a less stressful way to practice for interviews. This doesn't help anyone right now, obviously, but it's just something to keep in mind when you're on co-op next semester. So for first year and second year interviews, I would just focus on arrays, strings, recursion, and sorting. I don't think I got, my first dynamic programming problem that I got was like right now, and I'm in 3A. Like graph algorithms, all those don't typically show up until after 3A begins, because that's the point at which they expect you to at least understand those kinds of questions. But for your level, I would say stick to these topics. They're like the first 4 chapters, I think, in Writing Coding Interview, something like that. So yeah, that's my stuff. For behavioral questions, I've actually frequently got the question, why like a company? And so it's really important to like do your research into what that company does, and sort of explain what you're looking for in a job, and explain how that company sort of meets those goals and meets those expectations that you have of a co-op. And the last thing that I wanted to say is that I also got a lot of technical interviews that weren't programming interviews, where like I was given a scenario and asked to sort of evaluate it, or like which language would I use for the situation, or like here's a game, how would you design it, or like here's a system, how would you architect it. Those are really common questions that I get even now, and so it's definitely important to like keep such questions in mind and look around on the internet for solutions to such kinds of questions. So.
Anyone else have things they want to say about?
Yes. I have a friend who's in first year, and he came up to me like a couple of weeks ago. He was like really freaked out because he didn't know any language except Racket. Let me tell you that no one cares about the fact that you know only Racket, because picking up a new programming language once you've learned one is not that hard. And what they care really more about is like your thinking process and your problem-solving process. So I wouldn't be worried about like not knowing C, C++, Python. I'm not sure if anyone here agrees with me, but like I only had Racket and I ended up with like a backend job. So
I think it's kind of like, I think it does help though if you do learn an object-oriented programming language, because that's what most of the real world programs in. So it's like a big plus for from your interviewer's point of view, because then you can pick up like concepts easier.
you can also do side projects in just like in just Racket, or like it is possible to do that. Like I would focus on like if you're choosing to be like, do I learn Python because everyone uses Python, or do I like work on this side project idea that I have because I need side projects? I would definitely pick the side project over learning like a new programming language.
The next question is, how to show the company that you're really interested in them? We should touch on a little bit, but does anyone have other things they want to say about that, or like ways that you? So we talked about cover letters as well, and we also talked about researching the
I
company.
think going to info sessions is, when it comes to applying to Waterloo Works, like I've also applied outside. I'm just going to say JobMine because Waterloo Works is like a lot of syllables. I've also applied to jobs outside of JobMine, and like you mentioned, when you email a recruiter, you essentially pitch yourselves to them. And in those interviews, in those emails, I would typically say, this is my name, this is my major, this is why I like your company, this is why I think I'd be a good fit. But you essentially say the same thing if you sort of meet the people that work at that company, if you go meet them at an info session. So that's the best idea.
And don't just like say hello to the recruiter and then leave, because that's like you need to make like a reasonable impression on them so that they remember you for like when they look back at your resume and you're like, oh hey, I met that person over there. Because then they're more apt to trust you, and then that's how you get your interviews or like your email backs.
And the last question for the interview section is, we touched on this a little bit before, or should mention this a little bit, but how to balance school and other activities during interviews, which can be very hard because applying for jobs and that whole process is extremely time consuming, and school is already hard.
Yeah, I think this is like an area where if you chose to not go through Waterloo Works or JobMine, it would really shine, because then you have your own schedule, and the company will typically be like, hey, tell me what your availabilities are for the next 2 weeks, and you can be like, well, I have a midterm this day and an assignment due this day, so not those, and then you can schedule it for whatever the hell you want. If you're going through JobMine, obviously, like it's kind of a like crapshoot. You get whatever you get, from what I understand. So I'll let the others speak to that.
So I'm like a terrible person to ask about this, but so I'm pretty sure I'm going to drop co-op because of the way that they schedule that stuff.
Which is also a great option.
Yeah, so I feel kind of bad giving advice on this, but I guess my best advice, which is what I try to do, but sometimes doesn't go very well, is to just really like write out all the things you have to do and like schedule like down to the minute when you're doing them. Because if you're like me and if you just have a long list of things, you're like, holy crap, that's never gonna get done. Having like, if you're doing this then, and this then, takes out like takes the having to make a decision at every step out of the way. And making decisions takes a lot of time. So yeah, also don't over apply on JobMine. and have 5 interviews a month, or 5 interviews a week for a month. Don't do that. And then, yeah, I have a couple horror stories, but it's okay.
It's especially true when you're applying like the second time. Because like the first time you like don't know and you
Yeah.
don't have much experience, and then once you have experience, you don't realize how much more that'll help. And you kind of treat
Yeah,
if you treat it the exact same way as you did the first time you applied, you're gonna get way more interviews than you were expecting.
Yeah, like apply proportional to the amount of experience you have. So like when I was in applying for my first job, I had no experience. Used all of my applications, got 4 interviews. Second time was a weird anomaly. But recently, because I had like 2 really solid big production level projects on my resume, people were like, let's interview her. And I should have been a lot more picky. So yeah, TLDR, apply proportional to your experience and schedule the crap in your life.
I would just say like start your assignments early. Start studying
Classic
early.
advice.
You know it's not gonna happen, but just put that in your mind anyway. Start. You are going to miss class if you get a lot of interviews, so you should definitely keep that in mind and try to like plan around it. Maybe go to like a different class or just review the lecture slides for that, so you don't have to like scramble to like catch up later on.
When is the first round of jobs posted?
Like now, this coming weekend.
Like this coming weekend. So I would say that like for a short-term goal, start preparing for interviews right now, because once they roll around and once you have midterms to do as well, you're not going to have as much time to sort of gear yourself for them. So use this time to sort of get all the things that you need to do 2 weeks from now done right now, because I don't know how busy your lives are right now, but I promise you they're going to get busier. So use this downtime, use the upcoming weekend, use the rest of this week to sort of, run all those errands, get ahead of your homework. I would really suggest that, like, if there was ever a time to opt out of like social engagements or like hanging out with your friends, it would not be before finals. You need that before finals. You need that de-stressing before finals. But right now is that time to, say no to that event at the Bomber, say no to like
Sacrifice your life.
Well, this is the time that I would say that
Right
like
here first.
you spend most of your time on sleep, number 1, happiness and health and food, and your studies, and also preparing for interviews. So that's
Just give up with
my
social
responsible
life.
advice.
Cool. Any other thoughts on interviews? We're going to move into the other category. First question, what were your expectations before the work term, and how did it turn out? How was like any of them? Like how does going into the work term actually like being there, dealing with maybe like being different than you were expecting, and how do you deal with that? Yeah, you touched on it a bit before you did.
Yeah. So my first in-industry job, and you have all these perceptions because of media and like the internship, the movie, and all the friends who've been there. Yeah, there was a movie.
It's really weird.
It's really Google by Owen Wilson. So I basically I literally watched this before going to Google to pump myself up, and I was just like, oh my god, this is gonna be the best summer ever, and it was good. Question mark, but it definitely wasn't the best summer ever. And in a lot of ways, it ended up being pretty overwhelming. And it actually got me to this point where I was like, do I want to do software development forever? Am I cut out to be an engineer? Because I did not love this. The other thing was I expected my coworkers to be, this image engineers where they're all super pumped and they're excited about work and they genuinely love being there every day. And that just wasn't the case, especially in my team. I felt a lot of apathy from my team. I felt maybe because it was an interior facing project, and I just felt like this wasn't what I expected. So the way I kind of combated that was I just tried to do a lot of the side posts that boost you to make you happy, right? So I went to a lot of fitness classes, yoga, and there was one on what was it?
Aerial silks.
Yeah, aerial silks.
So
the
good.
stuff they do in Cirque du Soleil, that was super fun. Also, they just had these groups at Google get together and meet other Googlers, so that was kind of fun. But in terms of it being a job, that was really unexpectedly underwhelming. But it was great when I got to, because all these things that I thought about the tech industry came through. right? Like people like loved their jobs, they were super pumped, they like definitely believed in what they were working on. But one thing I will say about like an unexpected outcome of that was I worked out. So I spent way too much time working just because there were so many cool things to work on. And the way that is that they serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and people actually come in really early, and some people stay really late. Hopefully they're not the same people, but I somehow got it into my head that they were. So I stayed probably like 11-hour days sometimes, like quite frequently actually, and that just wasn't sustainable and it wasn't healthy. So even if like work ends up being really exciting and you want to do all the things, and you think like I'm only here 14 weeks, so I might as well do it, like I would recommend that you don't, just because like you will burn out.
I think it's also worth mentioning that even though Google has those perks, if you're somewhere else and you feel like really like unhappy, there are probably those perk kind of things that you can do outside of your company if they don't like some of those things. You can still go to your classes, you can still find social things to go to, and you can like I would definitely recommend putting effort into that if you're like in a bad situation, because co-op can be really lonely, like depending on where you are and what the company offers. So like seek out those opportunities.
So, like I mentioned before, my first internship I had after 2A. I'm now in 3A, and even now I have yet to figure out if that internship was a blessing or not. So like I said, I was in a really small team and I had like a lot of responsibility and I really got to own a lot of what I did. And also when I interviewed, even now, it's my projects that we match that interviewers most care about and are the most interested in. The downside to that was also working 11-hour days, being expected to put in a lot more effort than should be expected out of someone who's on their first co-op. I'm pretty open about what a shitty experience I had culture-wise at WeMesh. Yeah. Because the work I did was really great, and the days that I put my headphone on and didn't speak to anyone, and just got my work done and learned a lot about web development and API development, those were really great days. And then there were days where I had to, move into, PM roles or like product roles and actually talk to the people that I worked with and talk to the people that ran this company. Those were not very good days. I wasn't really accommodated well when it came to my health, when it came to when I wanted time off to go to a hackathon. My internship was more of like cheap labor that they wanted to work on a product and less of like, here's the person, let's educate her. And like I said, there were good and bad sides to that. I learned a lot about backend web development in my first co-op, and I felt confident enough to, apply and interview with really big companies and really respected companies right after that. But at the same time, it did affect my health and my happiness. Moving into my second co-op, that was a much more balanced, a much more structured experience when it came to learning and also my coworkers. My coworkers were a lot more invested, if I was happy, if I was learning, if I was working on the things that I wanted to work on. And that made me genuinely happy. And I cannot emphasize enough how your perception of what you're doing changes when people give you the room and the space to grow and learn and love what you're doing on your own, as opposed to forcing you to work 11-hour days. There were definitely times at Bazaar Voice when I worked, I think my last week when I really wanted to get my project down and get all my open PRs merged, I really stayed back, I worked 11-hour days, and since it was just that one time and since no one expected me to do it, I was honestly happy to, and I came out of that experience feeling really happy that I was supported by my manager, supported by my coworkers, and not only that, the extra effort that I put in was recognized by them, which also really, really helped. It really helped to be, told on my last day that they noticed the extra hours that I put in, the way I worked when I was sick, the way I worked when I attended a conference and took 4 days off. So yeah, in terms of culture and in terms of team size, team environment, I definitely had a great experience in Bazaar Voice. So I guess the lesson to take out of all of this is talk to people that you're negotiating job offers with about the hours that you're expected to work, the culture that is prevalent, at the office, expectations that are made of interns and that are made of full-time engineers. So,
yeah, in terms of dealing with being promised to work on a project and not being able to work on that project. So as I mentioned, I decided early on that I didn't like web dev. And the reason that I took my third co-op was because they told me I was going to be working on a really heavily algorithmic lots of like scheduling, load balancing, multi-threaded, all that stuff, which I was super excited for. Like that is my jam. Unfortunately, by the time I got there, they didn't have the funding for that anymore because it wasn't a customer-facing thing. And that was really disappointing and ended up kind of ruining my co-op because I turned down, I hadn't gone on to continuous because this company had told me I'd be doing cool things. So my advice for that and what I did this time for my job was I basically decided, like, if I'm not getting a job in what I want to be doing, I'm just going to go back to school. Because it's worth it to wait, especially when you're later on in your career and you have the experience. It's better to wait for stuff that you really want to come around rather than take another co-op. You're like, I don't want this, but I feel like I need to take it. Because especially if you're deep into like a specific area or a specific field, like web dev, the more like skills you have in it, the easier it is to get web dev jobs, and the harder it is to get other jobs. So yeah, like I mentioned, I wanted to go into security. I leveraged my web dev skills, but was very clear with the company that's hiring me now that I'm looking to get out of web dev. And that's honestly my best advice, is to A, be super clear beforehand, before taking the job, that this is what you want to be doing, and make them basically tell you what you're going to be doing, if they can, to the best of their abilities. And B, when you get there, be super clear about what you want to be doing. Don't hesitate to be like, I'm not interested in these things. I'm open to doing them, but I'm not really interested in them. And these are the things I want to do. Because I ended up saying, like, yeah, I like web dev just because I wanted a job, which sucked. So yeah.
I've heard my friend told me about 2 different times that he accepted a position at a job, and both of for a particular project he was really excited about. And both of those times he didn't end up getting to work on that project. Yeah. And he was just like, from now on, like I'm only going to accept offers when I would be happy to work on pretty much anything in that company. Yeah, because like you really have no idea what's going to happen once you get there. So once you have that ability to do that, like I would recommend that. Or even what like we were talking before, like, most of the jobs I like to do with like ads or things that like people generally don't find really exciting, and so there's a good chance that you end up working on those things. And so like thinking about what that company in general works on and whether you enjoy that.
It's even like a good idea to know what you want to do going into an interview, because it's really helpful for interviewers to see someone who's confident and really sure of themselves when it comes to like, this is what I want to do, and I tried doing this and I tried doing that, and that didn't really stick with me, and so I figured out that this is something that I'd really like to explore more. It's fine to admit inexperience in a field. Honestly, the way I see it is that like if someone judges me negatively for like saying, oh well, like I don't know all that much about like game development, but I'd like to learn, I probably don't want to work with you anyway. Which sounds like a really arrogant way to think, but honestly it isn't. You should understand that you are a student, going into co-op you're going to be an intern, and yes, there's lots of companies where interns are treated like full-time engineers, and that's great, but the same expectations should not be had of them. That's an important thing to recognize. I feel like a lot of students often internalize failures when it comes to applying for jobs, getting jobs, interviewing for jobs, working at their jobs. If they don't do well enough, they often blame themselves for it, and it's important not to do that.
So I had a different experience from most people, because since I was in the Explorer program, it's a program that places a lot of emphasis on learning rather than pushing product. So my managers are like really understanding. They're like, oh no, like it's okay. You should go to all these like, because I'm gonna wrap my intern experience out of my one co-op. But they had a whole bunch of conferences. Like one was on machine learning, another one was on other topics, and then there are like tons of cool events, like the signature event, which is the big one. So last summer we got to see Ellie Goulding at the Space Needle, and that was really cool. And so my manager really encouraged me to like check out all these like events at like on the Microsoft campus in order to like make the most out of my time and like learn like a breadth of stuff instead of just like trying to focus on, oh gosh, look at all these APIs, look at this like 16-year-old legacy code that I have to refactor and hope that I don't break. So I feel like Microsoft like made it like a really welcoming environment for you to learn and not like worry about like failure so much, because that's not like they don't care about like the fact that you didn't finish your project on time, because generally like the things that you produce in a big company aren't going to be used as much when you're gone. So like you should just take advantage of like the events they hold, or like the networking sessions, or like actually just like, for example, if you're working at a company on this one team that you don't really like as much, it's really possible like to go to another desk and say, hey, you know, what are you working on? And then like talk to the manager, and then maybe next term you can get to like transfer onto their team. And like, you should like take advantage of like your company more than just the project that you're working on.
Especially early on, having those like an early internship to like get that experience to learn about so many different things.
So yeah, and also like because of something about the program I was in, I was not legally allowed to work more than 9 hours a day. So I went to work at 9 and I left at 6, and I had a lot of time to do like the other things I was interested in.
Cool. Okay, other questions that are down here, I think we've sort of touched on, but I'll say them anyways, and then I'll ask you if there's anything else that you want to say, and then we can also see if there's anything you want to ask. So the next question was, what are your expectations before you got your first job, and how did the job process turn out, which is sort of similar to the question that was before this. I guess like specifically with your first job, like the process, was there anything, especially for your first job applying, that like was different than you were expecting, that we haven't really talked about?
QA is cool.
So at first you thought that it would not
Well,
be
yeah, because like I transferred into CS, knew nothing about it. Heard everyone be like, "Oh, QA is like you want to be a software engineer. You want to do dev. Like, why would you want to do QA?" It's like actually QA is great. I had the most impact on a company I've ever had. Also, if you're like interested in security-ish stuff, finding like security bugs is a good way to get there. That's all I'd like to say.
Okay. And then people have also touched on this, but about like maintaining your work terms related to a certain thing, or trying to get experience in like a bunch of different fields, and like how you approach like breadth versus depth thing.
I would personally say that you should definitely go for breadth, because co-op is like the time where you can sample all of your different jobs. Because when you're applying for full time, it's typically you're going to spend like 1 or 2 years at the minimum at that job before it's like reasonable for you to like take off and try another thing. So definitely, like since you have 6 co-op terms right now, I would just say, you know, go wild, you know, apply for that crypto job, or like, apply for that, because like as an intern, it's just like a lot easier if you get like 4 month samples instead of just like trying to dive into a 2 year commitment.
What is something that you think you'll like, and then try it, and then if you don't like it, you don't have to stay as long as you would if it was a full-time job.
On that subject, if you think you're interested in something, try to read something new about it every day. So like right now, I'm trying to teach myself about crypto protocols. So I'm taking like half an hour out of my day to learn about that, to figure out if A, it's something I'm actually interested in, and B, like so I can learn more about it so I can get jobs in it. This can kind of work as like a filter for you before you like apply to every kind of job. It'll also, if you try out liking that thing, it'll be like, hey, I know all of this crap now, which is really handy.
I would say there is no right answer to this question. I mean, there's a lot about like applying for jobs and getting jobs, so there's like a lot of general advice that I feel like a lot of us can agree on. When it comes to the variety of the jobs you want, so at Bazaar Boys, one of the interns, he interned with them 4 times on the same team, and now he's going back to work for them full time, which is a concept that I do not understand. I would be like,
It sounds kind of terrifying.
how could you like stand going back like semester after semester, like setting up your environment all over again for the same team, and you know like working for them, but like it ended up working out really well for him. He now knows the company, that, you know, as well as any full-time engineer. Now he's going back to work there. So I don't think that it, you know, didn't turn out all that well for him. For me, like I said before, like I'm really interested in working on the back end, but even then, when it comes to the stack, there's so many different layers to it. And the more that I work on back end, the more I realize there's so many different aspects to it. There's API development, there's infrastructure development, and I've already figured out for myself that that is the direction that I want to go in, and I'm not interested in working on a mobile app. And you know, I guess great for me that I figured that out. If you don't know that yet, like for sure try out client side development, server side development, security, whatever else, that might also work great for you. TLDR, there is no right answer.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Although I am a big proponent of breadth to some extent. So I think most of you guys will have or already have had like some of 6 co-op terms. You don't have to go to like 6 different companies. I think by like the 3rd or 4th, you should probably have, well, you might not, but you might have a pretty good idea of what you want to do. And at that point, it's totally fine to like go back to the company that you really loved. Because experience really does build upon itself, and the ramp-up period when you start at a new company is like pretty steep. So if you can like start at square, 5 instead of square 0, like that's amazing, and it will like vastly increase the amount of impact you have in that company. I know someone who did that with Stripe, and then the second term he was there, he was like interviewing people for like full-time positions already, and like that's pretty crazy, right? So. Yeah, I think like the company also trusts you a lot more. I think there's a lot of merit to like doing duplicates if you are pretty sure this is what you want to do.
Imagine going for like a full-time job and like knowing that your interviewers.
But you don't know because they're just like another employee.
Yeah. But imagine finding out. Anyway, adding in my own experience, I worked in a startup last term and I thought that I probably wouldn't like working in a startup. I don't know if I would want to do it for like a long time, but for 4 months I definitely learned a lot and I definitely enjoyed it. So there's also merit to like things that you don't know what you want to do for a long time, but you're like sort of interested in what it would be like. And an internship is a great way to do that. So definitely would recommend. Okay, I think after this, just anything else that you want to like say, anything that you want to ask, any questions, whatever's on your mind. Ask anything.
Questions, comments, concerns was like the line that we ended with at stand up. Like we were just about to wrap up and my manager would be like, questions, comments, concerns? No? Okay. Done.
Cool. Yes.
Did you ever contact employer outside JobMind with Sika ask you not to? Suppose you're stuck with a job you don't want to, and then you have to do that.
I can speak to this.
Off the record.
Off the record.
Okay, yeah.
It's fine.
JobMind gets mad.
So during my Hell month of October, I had put my resume into the Grace Hopper database, which is like this giant conference. So I was technically interviewing outside of JobMind after Sika told me I wasn't allowed to. So by the time it came to rankings, I was in a position where I was waiting to hear back from a Vancouver company / Silicon Valley company, whatever. But I also really wanted this thing on JobMind. But obviously I couldn't take the Vancouver job if I got the JobMind job. So what I ended up doing was I decided that I wanted the JobMind job more. So I had a couple offers. So I ranked the job I wanted 1, and I ranked 9 for the rest of them, using that one as my backup. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I actually don't know if I would have been allowed to take that job if I'd gotten the offer, or if they would have forced me to continue this. But Sika won't get that mad at you.
Okay, so if you had, in that situation, taken the other job and they hadn't been able to put on JobMind before ranking it, sometimes companies can go in and edit it.
I know some Facebook did that.
But if they don't do that and you get an offer and you get matched and then you say, actually, never mind, you can do this, but you'll be kicked off of JobMind for a term, or this would work before.
I think there's an option now for what it works is to like ignore
no rank.
Oh wow.
So you
Yeah.
guys are lucky. We had to just take the job off. Like
Yeah, we had to suck it up.
And it is possible that you can rank a job 9 and still get matched with it if everyone else also ranks it.
It is highly unlikely though.
Yeah.
I heard one case in my, holy shit, I've been here 2 years.
4.
In my time here where Sika has actually helped someone, and I've heard lots of accounts of Sika not helping students, including myself. As far as contacting employers goes, I think it's fine because they don't care. They don't like Sika either, trust me.
It's true.
So if you can find like the contact group here, I don't think it's.
Any other questions? I saw another hand. Yeah.
How do you go about negotiating salary, especially if you're like, if you have a job mind interview? Like, how do
how do we interviewing and negotiating salary?
I think it's a fair question to ask what the salary is, but typically for interns, depending on how you leverage your skills, it's possible to ask for more money. For example, my friend got a job at a startup in San Fran, right? And they offered him some very ridiculously low amount per month, which was exactly the amount he would be paying for rent, which means that he would be losing money in the summer. So he definitely reached out to them and was like, hey, I have these skills, I feel like it's a fair offer that you pay me this much. And then there was a little bit back and forth, and he got a raise in his salary. Thank goodness, right?
It was just through deadline, so we just reached out after